The Inquisitors, the famed Jedi hunters following the dreaded Order 66 and collapse of the Old Republic. The Inquisitors that paved way for the rise of the Empire and ensured the Empire's continued success, with their sole mission of extinguishing the greatest enemy of the newfound Empire and the Sith, the Jedi stragglers, and survivors of the initial stages of the Great Purge. Every single one of the Inquisitors was former Jedi themselves, turned to the dark side of the Force before the events of the fall of the Republic, or forcefully just afterwards. Wikipedia describes the Inquisitors and the Inquisitorius as follows. The Order of Inquisitors and the Imperial Inquisition was an organization of mysterious Force-sensitive dark side agents who served the Sith-ruled Galactic Empire. Members of the Inquisitorius were called Imperial Inquisitors, or simply Inquisitors, and were also nicknamed the Red Blades. They were tasked with hunting down the remaining Jedi who had survived Order 66 at the end of the Clone Wars, as part of the Great Jedi Purge. They were also tasked with hunting down and locating any children who were identified as Force-sensitive. These Inquisitorius were governed by the Sith Lord Darth Vader, who was the apprentice to the Galactic Emperor Sheev Palpatine, and led by an individual known as the title of the Grand Inquisitor. Their time following the Great Jedi Purge, the Inquisitors became known as some of the most feared Jedi hunters and killers in galactic history. However, they would eventually die out just around 2 decades after the initial rise of the Empire, leaving only Darth Vader and Darth Sidious as the 2 true Darksiders behind the Empire itself. Among Star Wars fandom, despite their obvious intimidating reputation, the Inquisitorius are described as quite weak, and in some circles even pitiful. And in this video, I would like to break from the norm and explain my opinion on why the Inquisitors are actually weak. And it is also my belief that it is Darth Vader's fault that the Inquisitors were so ill-prepared to fight against Jedi, and at the same time, how Darth Vader could have organized a more powerful group of Darksiders, more prepared to hunt down the Order 66 survivors. Before we talk about the Inquisitors themselves, let's talk about Darth Vader, the primary master of the Inquisitors, and Darth Vader being the individual that retrained the Inquisitors how to battle in lightsaber combat. This issue stemmed from the fact that Darth Vader, who was a fully formed Dark Lord of the Sith, while extremely powerful in the dark side of the Force, lacked in areas such as teaching the methods of the dark side. Unlike his master Sidious, Vader was not a wellspring of knowledge of Sith lore and abilities. He was simply so inherently gifted in the dark side of the Force because of his experiences and his identity as the Chosen One that a lot of the deeper techniques of the Sith were useless to him. Just because Darth Vader is quite possibly one of the most gifted Sith Lords ever does not mean he is adept at teaching these methods. Darth Vader is powerful because of his pure connection to the dark side, something that is not easily taught. Being a fan of the sport of basketball, I'll explain it like this. Just because a player is inherently physically gifted and knows the game of basketball well does not mean they'll be able to relay that information when they one day become a coach. Being a good basketball player does not directly translate to coaching an entire basketball team. This is where Darth Vader stems from. He knows how to use the dark side of the Force. He's a juggernaut in it. But again, his teaching methods are imperfect. But it is far from only Darth Vader's fault that the Inquisitors were not very powerful darkside wielders. It stems from the fact that they were all themselves former Jedi, and as Darth Vader described, they fight like it as well. This is an exchange of dialogue between the Grand Inquisitor and Lord Vader. The Inquisitors are formidable fighters. They are former Jedi, in fact, and they fight like it, defensive, moving to attack only when there is no other choice. The Jedi taught that a battle could be countered a victory if both parties survive. This error has infected the Inquisitors' attacks. And it shows. Beyond simply their lightsaber skills, this weakness also translated to their ability to use the dark side of the Force, as many of the Inquisitors did not inherently turn to the dark side of the Force after the fall of the Republic. Many of them simply turned after being tortured at the hand of Darth Vader. In fact, I would argue that the Inquisitors that turned organically and felt the pull of the dark side of the Force more naturally are the more powerful of the Inquisitorius, such as the Grand Inquisitor himself, who turned to the dark side of the Force after being denied Jedi knowledge. The Grand Inquisitor, even as a Jedi, grew to despise the Jedi Order, specifically Jocasta Nu. His turn to the dark side of the Force was more natural than simply being forced to it. A similar thing can be said by the Inquisitor's second sister, Trilla, who in large part embraced the dark side of the Force after her own Jedi Master Sayer turned in their location and the location of many other Jedi Padawans, creating a hatred for the Jedi as well as her master, and a more organic connection to the dark side. Therefore, why the Grand Inquisitor and the second sister are some of the most powerful Inquisitors in all of Star Wars. Being former Jedi meant the Inquisitors were weak in the dark side of the Force. Darth Vader noticed this when he began training them. Vader aimed to cut the Inquisitors from their more defensive fighting style and make it only offensive. In order to make their connection to the dark side of the Force more pure, Darth Vader attempted to teach the Inquisitors loss, the same loss that he was so familiar with, and the same loss that fueled his power in the dark side. Vader did this by expending at least one of their limbs, such as the sixth brother's left forearm, the fifth brother's right hand, and the ninth sister's left eye, attempting to force them to the dark side of the Force by taking their limbs off one by one, an act that would only partially push the Inquisitors more towards the dark side of the Force, as again, it was not fully on their will that they would turn. So despite all of this, and despite the Inquisitors being relatively weak, why were they so successful? The answer here is also very intriguing. Do not get it twisted, many of the most powerful Jedi during the Age were either not found during Order 66, such as Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, or many of the other Jedi were exterminated during the initial stages of Order 66, as the clone troopers turned on them. It was after the Inquisitors that were initially introduced that many of the most powerful Jedi had all been wiped out, and much of the Jedi Council, meaning that what was left was simply Jedi stragglers, most cases Jedi Knights, and even more common than this, Jedi Padawans, who many Jedi Masters gave their lives to defend against during Order 66, and an Inquisitor was more than a match for the common Jedi Padawan. There were also multiple stages to an Inquisitor hunting down a group of surviving Jedi, or even a single surviving Jedi. 99% of the time, Inquisitors hunted in packs, with the minimal amount being 2. Therefore, if a Jedi Knight proved to be more powerful than a single Inquisitor, another Inquisitor was not far behind. Only the most powerful of the Inquisitors were seen hunting alone, such as the Grand Inquisitor and the fallen Jedi Trilla. If the Inquisitors came against a threat that was too powerful for them to overcome, they would not hesitate to call in backup, even calling upon the Sith Lord and their master Darth Vader, as we saw in Star Wars Rebels on Malachor, when after the Inquisitors encountered both Ahsoka Tano as well as Maul, they did not hesitate to call upon their master, realizing that they stood no chance. I do not think that Darth Vader failing to train the Inquisitors to the utmost of his potential is inherently a major flaw, however. I'm just saying that this is in large part why the Inquisitors were so weak. However, the Inquisitors also largely served their purpose and were largely successful, something that a lot of people tend to overlook despite them being very weak. At the time of A New Hope, the threat in the galaxy concerning the Jedi is next to nothing before Luke Skywalker arrives. The Inquisitors completely fulfilled their purpose, and they were never meant to be trained to the nth degree. In fact, it was Palpatine's desire for them not to be fully trained, desiring for Vader and himself to covet all of the power within the dark side of the Force. Don't get it twisted, the Inquisitors were always meant to be pawns and never transform beyond that, and pawns are expendable. So although the Inquisitors are very, very weak, they were designed that way. Anyway, my friends, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and a little bit of a deeper dive into the Inquisitors and their relationship with the dark side as well as their masters. If you're watching this video and haven't subscribed yet, I'd urge you to take a chance, and check out more of my expansive videos on the Star Wars universe. As always, my friends, I appreciate your viewership and support. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.